Welcome back to Omoshiroi Recap. Today, I will recap Noragami. The story begins with a schoolgirl being talked about and bullied by her classmates. It turns out that the bullying action was caused by a supernatural being or phantom. Phantom can influence the human mind to do evil things. The victim of the bullying begged the gods to help her, and the request was heard by a lowly god named Yato. Yato granted the request from humans for only 5 yen. In the end, Yato eradicated the phantom with the help of a regalia named Tamon. After that, Tamon suddenly wanted to stop being Yato's partner. Tamon was sick and tired of living like a bum with a poor and lowly god without a temple. Yato was finally forced to release Tamon's contract. Then Yato contemplated his fate in a park. Suddenly, he got a job call to find a lost cat named Usama. Yato immediately searched for it by yelling for the cat in the middle of the city. At the same time, there is a girl who likes boxing named Iki Hiyori. While on the side of the road, she sees Yato chasing a cat in the middle. A speeding bus was about to hit Yato, but Hiyori saved him from the collision. People had gathered around the body of a girl whose spirit had been released from her body. Hiyori finally woke up in the hospital. After that incident, Hiyori could hear and see creatures from the supernatural realm. Even Hiyori did not remember her meeting with Yato, so suddenly, Yato met her and surprised her. Yato introduced himself as a god, but Hiyori didn't believe it. After seeing that Hiyori was fine, Yato immediately left there. The next day, Hiyori became more often sleepy and weak suddenly. Then, when Hiyori returned home from school, she remembered seeing the missing cat brochure. She also plans to find the cat so she can meet Yato again. On the other hand, Yato managed to find the cat, but he met Phantom there. Yato, who did not have regalia, was overwhelmed by the phantom. Suddenly, Hiyori came to his rescue and beat the phantom with a kick of justice. After that, Yato returned the cat to its owner. Then Yato explained that Hiyori was a human trapped in 2 realms. Even though she is alive, she is also a phantom. Hiyori also asked him to heal and return her to her original self. But to do so, Yato asked for a fee of 5 yen from Hiyori. Hiyori was surprised because the fee was too cheap. After paying 5 yen, Yato accepted Hiyori's request. A few days later, Hiyori's condition worsened. She often fell asleep suddenly at school, and her spirit wandered. Because she was annoyed by this, she finally called Yato again to cure her immediately, and wondered if Yato was really a god. Yato appeared in front of Hiyori suddenly. Yato explained that he was a god of war born from a wish, and now he could not exert all his power because he did not have regalia. After hearing this, Hiyori took the initiative to help Yato get a new regalia so that he could heal her immediately. A few moments later, Hiyori managed to find it and immediately called Yato. But after seeing the spirit that Hiyori brought, Yato took Hiyori to run away immediately because the spirit was a curse. Hiyori tried to fight him, but Yato pulled her tail and took her away when she was about to beat up the phantom. Yato explained that her tail was not an ordinary tail but a rope of life. If it was cut off, then she would die. The phantom returned to chase them. While running, suddenly Yato saw a young spirit, and Yato decided to make the spirit his regalia. Yato began to chant spells, and the spirit became a katana named Yukini. Eventually, Yato could use his powers and easily cut the phantom to pieces. After the battle, Yato cried because he could feel Yukini's suffering when he was alive. Then, the katana turned into a spirit in human form. Yato explains that he is his master and allows him to be by his side. But Yukini was so rude that he left Yato speechless. Yato and Yukini were starving because they had no money, so Yato asked Hiyori to treat them. When they finished eating, Hiyori asked about Yukini's previous life, but Yukini didn't remember about his previous life. When Yukini looked at Hiyori's boobs, Yato suddenly felt a headache. It turns out that regalia and God are one body and mind, so Yato can feel all his demon thoughts. Yato got another job call because she felt they would abandon her. Hiyori panicked and tried to catch up. Then Hiyori's spirit moved instantly with Yato and Yukini, and it turned out that the one who called him this time was the god of learning, Tenjin. Knowing that Hiyori and Yukini were immediately amazed by the Tenjin god. He has many temples full of wishes and prayers. He also has many regalia in the form of young girls, one of whom is Tamon or Mayu. Tenjin wanted to ask Yato to destroy one of the demons and told Mayu to accompany them. Then Mayu took them to a train line. In that place, a demon often plunged humans and made them commit suicide. Hiyori immediately eradicated the phantom, but Yato said something that made Hiyori upset.
死にたいやつは死ねばいい。
そんな、それがあなたの仕事でしょ?
After hearing that, Hiyori became upset and planned to defeat the phantom alone. Hiyori went straight to the source of the demon storm and then kicked the phantom attached to a student's body. But unexpectedly, many phantom were there, making Hiyori helpless and tied in the middle of the train tracks. Luckily, Yato managed to save Hiyori, but their work was still not over because the phantom he was hunting wanted to influence a student to commit suicide on the train tracks. But before that happened, Yato managed to cut down the phantom, and the boy was saved. Hiyori asked why Yato wanted to save them when he had previously said cruel things. Yato explained he didn't want to let anyone die in front of regalia. They are dead spirits but still have the will to live, so letting people commit suicide in front of the regalia will only hurt their hearts. Hiyori brought back food for Yato and hoped he would grant her request soon. But Yato pretended not to hear her words and instead took them to see his acquaintance. Yato took them to his friend, a god named Kafuku.
彼女の幸福です。よろしく。
俺の神さんに手出すな。
A scary man immediately kicked Yato for making out with his master. He was Kafuku's regalia named Daikoku. Kafuku is actually the god of poverty, and anyone who comes near her will experience bad luck and can even cause major disasters. Because Kafuku is energetic and gentle, Hiyori and Yukini can quickly get along with her. But Kafuku warns them that Yato is a scary god even though he looks like a comedy character. Suddenly, Yato gets a job call, and they rush off. In his hurry, Yato accidentally pushes the person and falls off the top of the building. Despite falling very calmly, they get to know each other, and the person tells Yato his problems. It turned out that he had been dating a young girl and had always tried to give her his best. But ever since he met her, he'd been unlucky enough to bankrupt his company and deplete all his finances. They were shocked to learn he had been dating Kafuku, the god of poverty. Yato advises her to forget the girl because she can only bring disaster, and Yato also says that Kafuku has a terrible husband. In the end, he agreed to break his bond with Kafuku. Although Yukini hesitated initially because he had never cut someone's bond, Yato managed to convince him, and they managed to cut him bond with Kafuku perfectly. Afterwards, they returned to Kafuku's place and explained what had happened. Daikoku thanks Yato and gives him 5 yen. When Yato and Yukini left, Kafuku told Hiyori about Yato's past. Yato once killed regalia and even humans because he was the god of war. But Daikoku told Hiyori not to worry because that time had passed. After leaving Kafuku's place, Yato embraced Hiyori and said if something happened to him, go to Kafuku's place. Hiyori promised to remember his words while blushing because Yato smelled so good. Meanwhile, Yukini suddenly met a mysterious girl named Nora. She said she would always wait for Yato to call her name again while disappearing from their presence. After learning that Nora is also Yato's regalia, Yukini feels that Yato does not need his presence. Hiyori also thought that Yato was just a man who liked to play with other girls, so Hiyori decided to take care of Yukini by bringing him to her house. Whenever regalia did something despicable or thought of something perverted, his master would feel pain. That's why Yato forbade it, but Hiyori insisted. Hiyori prepared a room for Yukini, but Yukini was so afraid of the dark that Hiyori decided to sleep with him. Sleeping with a beautiful girl, Yukini couldn't control his lust and wanted to touch Hiyori's boobs. But Yato came to stop him and warned him not to do that again. Yukini didn't listen to his words and still felt upset about Nora, who was Yato's regalia. The next day, Yato explained to Hiyori that regalia used to be a human and humans must sin, and that sin turned into pain. Of course, Yukini's previous actions have made Yato feel pain. Yato mentioned that the gods can punish and even kill humans or regalia. If Yukini insisted on doing despicable deeds, Yato would punish him. Hearing that, Hiyori remembered Kafuku's words about how scary Yato was. Hiyori immediately went to look for Yukini's whereabouts. On the other hand, Yukini was wandering around alone and didn't realize night had fallen. He rushed to find a bright place, but instead, he met the spirit of a girl looking for her mother. It seems the girl was the victim of an accident a few days ago. Unable to leave her alone, Yukini decides to accompany the little girl's spirit. The girl is always waiting for her mother to come, but Yukini tells her that her mother will never come because the girl is dead. The girl is shocked and heads to the dark place where the phantom are. Yukini tried to protect her by making a barrier, but it was too late because the girl had merged with the phantom. Yato arrived there and immediately saved them. Yato explained that to free the girl from suffering only by annihilating her with phantom. Yukini couldn't bear to do that, but he had no choice. Finally, they destroyed the phantom with one slash. After the previous incident, Yukini's mentality became unstable and more rebellious. He began to dare to steal objects from humans. Yukini took a skateboard from a mall and played with it, but Yato suddenly intercepted him and asked about where Yukini got the skateboard. Yukini replied that Hiyori had given it to him. Hiyori confirmed it even though she knew Yukini had lied and stolen the skateboard. Suddenly, a beautiful blonde woman riding a lion appeared. She was the strongest god of combat who had many regalia named Bishamon. Bishamon immediately attacked Yato with the intention of killing because, in the past, Yato slaughtered almost all of her regalia. Yato and Yukini escaped, but Bishamon wouldn't let them escape. Meanwhile, Hiyori remembered something and went to Kafuku's place to ask for help. Daikoku said it was a problem between them that had nothing to do with them. It seemed Daikoku didn't want to interfere with the problem, but Hiyori kept begging them. In the end, Kafuku accepted her plea and rushed to Yato's place. Yato, fighting Bishamon, seemed unable to match her power and could only run away. Bishamon has a regalia named Kazuma, whose job is to navigate other regalia. Kazuma's direction made Bishamon the strongest combat god. In addition, Yato is also in a weakened state due to the curse he got from Yukini's bad treatment. Even Yukini has no fighting spirit because he is scared and still angry with Yato. Then Bishamon found them again, but while they were fighting, Kafuku came to separate the two of them using her regalia. The move issued by Kafuku created a wind burrow that made the phantom come from hell. Bishamon ordered her lion to attack Yato. At the same time, Nora was also there. She protected Yato so that he could attack the lion. Seeing this, Bishamon was angry and tried to break through the wind burrow. Kazuma immediately calmed her down because the other regalia had been injured and could not force them to fight. In honor of Kafuku, Bishamon let Yato escape that day and warned him that she would kill Yato with her own hands next time. After the battle, Yato's curse worsened, and he questioned whether using Yukini as a regalia was a mistake. At that moment, Nora offered herself to be used by Yato again. The previous wind burrow caused Phantom to arrive from hell, so Bishamon was forced to clean up all the Phantom. On the other hand, Yukini came to Tenjin's temple. He wanted to work at his place because he was fed up with Yato. But Tenjin can't make him join there. If Tenjin gives him a new name, then he will become Nora. During the day, Hiyori meets Tenjin and asks about Nora. Tenjin explained that Nora was a regalia who served more than one god. Normally, regalia only serves one god, but Nora wants to get more than one name. So she becomes a regalia of many gods without relinquishing her ownership of the previous god first. Because of that, she was considered a traitor and was hated by other regalia. Hiyori, who was looking for Yukini's whereabouts, was suddenly visited by Kazuma. Kazuma realized that Hiyori was half phantom. Kazuma tells Hiyori that if Yukini doesn't change his attitude, then Yato will die, because Yukini's bad behavior will cause his master pain. And if left unchecked, the pain will accumulate into a curse spreading throughout his body. At night, Yato gets a job, but Yukini meets Nora. Nora also makes Yukini feel useless and better off dead. Yato asks Yukini not to listen to Nora's words and focus on fighting the Phantom. Although Yato managed to attack him, his sword became dull because Yukini's mentality was unstable. From a distance, Nora was willing to give her power to Yato, but Yato refused because he already had Yukini. Yato coated his sword with purification water. That way, he managed to cut down the Phantom. Yato and Yukini suddenly appeared in the girls' bathroom, which surprised Hiyori and hit them both. It turned out that a boy student contacted Yato in the girls' bathroom because he was always bullied, so he hid there. He also explained that his classmates always played tricks on him every recess. He felt desperate and didn't want to be there. Yato said the boy looked like Yukini, but that upset Yukini and he left. To solve the boy's problem, Yato gave him a cutter to fight his classmates. On the other hand, Yukini felt jealous of other kids his age having fun with their friends. Yukini wished he could be like them and have friends too, but he realizes that he can't have that. Then the boy went to his classmate, and with a scary face, he threw the cutter at him. The boy had been influenced by Phantom, so he thought killing his classmate was the only way he could be happy. But suddenly, he remembered Yato's words. If he did that, he wouldn't want to be human anymore. The boy immediately let go of the cutter while his classmate was so scared that he peed his pants and ran away. Yato was also there. He planned to douse him with purification water if the situation got dangerous. But Yato did not expect the boy to control himself. After that, with a face full of confidence, he will face all the obstacles in his life, and Yato hopes he can find a good friend. Suddenly, Yato felt pain. Apparently, Yukini's emotions and frustration were unstoppable.
かわいそうな子。
He smashed the school windows to vent his frustration. Yato was even more pain, and the curse spread throughout his body. Seeing this, Hiyori took the initiative to take him to Kafuku's place. Hiyori also met Yukini and explained that his bad deeds had made Yato suffer. Even so, he always held him back. Hiyori forces Yukini to come to Kafuku's place. In front of Kafuku's house, realizing they had been cursed, Daikoku immediately made a barrier between them so they could not enter. Seeing Hiyori desperate, Daikoku finally allowed Hiyori to enter. Kafuku immediately helped clean the curse off Hiyori's body with purification water. Kafuku also tells her that the only way to help Yato is with a purification ceremony. A ceremony performed to remove the curse caused by the regalia by punishing the regalia who have committed despicable acts. Regalia can only perform this ceremony because only human spirits can judge the sins of fellow spirits. This ceremony also requires 3 regalia, so Daikoku hurried to find 2 more regalia to help him.
Yukine! そこを一歩でも動いたらぶっ殺す.
Daikoku immediately headed to the Tenjin residence to ask for help. Luckily, Mayu or Tamon, former regalia Yato, was willing to help him. However, they had trouble finding the 3rd regalia because the purification ceremony was risky. If the ceremony fails, then the regalia who performed the ceremony could have been eaten by Phantom. Knowing Yato's condition was in danger, Tenjin was so upset about what Yukini had done that Tenjin even broke his finger. Daikoku also told Kafuku that he still couldn't find 1 more regalia. Hearing that, Hiyori rushed off to help find regalia. Hiyori thought of asking Nora for help, but she was afraid Nora would kill Yukini. Then Hiyori remembered Kazuma, one of the regalia who really respected Yato. Hiyori went straight to the temple of Bishaman's residence. After knowing Yato was in danger, Kazuma rushed to Kafuku's place. Kazuma advised Yato to revoke Yukini's name to be free from this suffering, but Yato refused. So, the only way to save Yato was to perform a purification ceremony. Daikoku immediately told Yukini to remove his clothes, and unexpectedly, Phantom was attached to his back. After that, Daikoku, Mayu, and Kazuma immediately performed the purification ceremony on Yukini. The 3 of them formed a boundary line and tortured Yukini. The torture would be carried out until Yukini regretted his actions, and if he did not want to admit it, then Phantom would take over his consciousness.
死ねばいいんだ! 大黒! 国旗になってこいつを倒せ! 俺が抜けたら決壊するだろうが! もっといい知恵ねえのかエリート!
Yukini, however, seems to insist that he is right. He is very jealous of others who have memories, family, and friends. Hiyori tries to get close to him and says that Yato is sticking around even though Yukini keeps hurting and betraying him. At the same time, Yato called his name and asked him to continue living like a human. Those words brought Yukini back to his senses, and he cried out, admitting his mistake and apologizing.
だから人として生きろ! 生きるんだ、ユキネ! ごめんなさい! 俺がヤトを刺しました!
The 2 of them finally recovered from the curse, Hiyori crying as she hugged them. At that moment, Yato realized that they might not have survived if there was no Hiyori. After the events of that night, Yato felt he owed her a lot and planned to fulfill Hiyori's request. But it turns out that he doesn't know how to cure Hiyori, whose spirit often comes out of her body. Yato then asked Tenjin, and Tenjin advised Yato to cut his ties with Hiyori. Yato's relationship with Hiyori made her too focused on their world, but Yato just kept quiet when he heard that. On New Year's Eve, Hiyori invites Yato and Yukini to meet at Tenjin's shrine. When the day arrives, Hiyori is with her two friends and suddenly sees Yato's figure from a distance. At that moment, Hiyori's spirit immediately chased him, but it turned out that it was all just a trap made by Nora. Nora seems upset with Hiyori for helping with the purification ceremony earlier when it was a good opportunity to remove Yukini's name. You can be sure that Nora wants to get rid of Yukini. After that, Nora immediately told her dogs to attack and cut off Hiyori's tail. On the other hand, Yato and Yukini were heading to the place where they had an appointment with Hiyori, and suddenly, he got a job to exterminate Phantom. But the Phantom is also a trap for them, and the mastermind is a disaster god named Rabu. Rabu is in cahoots with Nora and wants to see what Yato and Yukini are capable of. Yato cleared the Phantom with ease. Meanwhile, Hiyori was cornered by Nora's dogs. Luckily, she was saved thanks to the rising sun that destroyed the dogs. Then Nora approached her and asked Hiyori to disappear. After that, Yato and Yukini finally met Hiyori, but there was something strange about Hiyori because she didn't remember Yato at all. Hiyori can still recognize Yukini and only forget Yato. Yato also tried to restore Hiyori's memory in every way, even describing all their memories in a book. Suddenly, Nora meets them. Yato already suspects that Nora is the mastermind behind all this. Nora states that she has taken Hiyori's memories of Yato and shows her regalia seal. Yato immediately knew that Nora's owner was now Rabu. Rabu summoned Nora and immediately attacked them. Rabu's power was so strong that it left Yato helpless. Yukini was badly injured and forced to return to his human form. Before leaving there, Nora challenged Yato. If he could defeat Rabu, then Nora would restore Hiyori's memory. As a result of the battle of the two gods, a wind burrow appeared in the city and many phantom appeared there. Then Kazuma, who stopped by Kafuku's place, explained that Rabu and Yato were disaster gods who had fought together. Rabu is a god of disaster who will grant evil wishes and kill anyone, including the gods. Rabu's goal this time is to make Yato return to being an evil god of disaster. The next day, Yukini brought a storybook about their memories and showed it to Hiyori. However, Hiyori could not remember it and even began to forget about Yukini, making Yukini surprised and confused about what had happened. On the other hand, Nora returns to see Yato and says their time is running out. If Yato doesn't meet Rabu soon, Hiyori will become an empty soul. Finally, Yato and Yukini intended to prepare to fight Rabu to restore Hiyori's memory and save her. Before leaving, they met Hiyori first and promised to restore her memory. But when Yato and Yukini wanted to move to Rabu's place, Hiyori's spirit accidentally came with them. They were surprised that Hiyori came with them to Rabu's temple. Yato told Hiyori to leave because they would start fighting with Rabu. Although Yato managed to corner him, Rabu did it purposefully and counterattacked by locking him in water. Luckily, Hiyori was there and got them out of the water. This made Rabu annoyed to see Yato's stupid face. Rabu realized that the thing that made Yato weak was Hiyori, so Rabu planned to kill Hiyori first, but Yato immediately prevented him and saved Hiyori. Unfortunately, they couldn't escape from Rabu. Rabu throws Hiyori's memory crystal into the river and Yato immediately picks up the crystal, but Rabu destroys the crystal, making Hiyori lose consciousness. Now, Hiyori is nothing more than a lump of flesh. Of course, that made Yato angry. He returned to his old self and immediately beat Rabu mercilessly. Rabu felt pressed by Yato, so he sucked Phantom Storm into his body, making him stronger. Even so, Rabu's power was still no match for Yato. Their fight was so fierce that it destroyed the mountain. Hiyori, who was there, was almost hit by a large rock. Fortunately, Yato managed to protect her from the rock. Because Yato hugged her, Hiyori again felt the scent of Yato's body, and somehow, it could restore her memory. Nora was surprised that Hiyori could break the spell. While they were off guard, Rabu caught Hiyori again and intended to kill her. At that moment, Yato asked Yukini to use the boundary line technique to slash Rabu so as not to hit Hiyori. They managed to slash Rabu, making him seriously injured. Then, with his final attack, Yato managed to finish off the god of disaster, Rabu. Finally, they managed to win this battle. Then, on the way home, suddenly, Yato spoke to Hiyori with a serious face. Yato said it was better to cut his bond with Hiyori so that she could live quietly and happily. But Hiyori rejected it immediately because she wanted to be with Yato and the others forever. Hearing Hiyori's previous words made them blush, and Yato asked Hiyori to pay 5 yen for Hiyori's request earlier, and Hiyori was happy to pay it. A few days later, Bishamon had a nightmare about her past, where Yato slaughtered all her regalia right in front of her. That's why Bishamon hates Yato so much and wants to avenge him. Bishamon told Kazuma to track Yato's whereabouts. Kazuma immediately obeyed the order, but Kazuma saw that Bishamon was unwell. Even so, Bishamon continued to carry out her duties to eradicate phantoms in the city. At the same time, Yato and Yukini were walking while promoting their services. Seeing Bishamon on patrol, they immediately hid to avoid her. Yato warned Yukini to never approach Bishamon. On the other hand, Bishamon found a wild spirit attacked by Phantom, and Bishamon immediately saved her. With Kazuma's help, Bishamon easily used some regalia to defeat the Phantom. Although the Phantom was defeated, the curse already contaminated the wild spirit. Bishamon immediately cleaned it up and made it her regalia named Mine. Bishamon brought her to her residence. There, she was welcomed by all of Bishamon's regalia, of which there were many. They welcomed her with smiles and applause, but there was one person who looked unhappy. After that, Kazuma realized that Bishamon's condition was unwell. With so many regalia, the greater the suffering she bore, so that made Kazuma worried about Bishamon's health. Then, a doctor who always treated Bishamon came. He was named Kyugaha. He had prepared a soaking ritual for Bishamon. When Bishamon was soaking, Kyugaha mentioned Kazuma doing a purification ceremony by the god Yato. Bishamon didn't believe it and laughed at the rumor. On the other hand, Yukini, relaxing by the river, was reprimanded by a boy named Suzuha. Yukini was very happy to meet him and wanted to be friends with him. It turns out that Suzuha is one of Regalia Bishamon's. Of course, it surprises Yukini. At the same time, Kyugaha eavesdropped on their conversation and smiled slyly while carrying the one-eyed mask that Nora used to wear. Then Nora met Kyugaha somewhere. It turned out that Kyugaha had something to do with Nora, and they were planning something. After finishing exterminating the Phantom, Yukini immediately met Suzuha by the river. Suzuha showed his an old-looking cherry tree. Suzuha said that he made an appointment with a human to meet and watch the cherry tree bloom. It turned out that she was a girl he had met 30 years ago, and although the girl could see and interact with him, the girl had forgotten him. After hearing that, Yukini wondered about Hiyori as she grew older and whether she would forget them. Yukini was afraid that Hiyori would forget about him. At the same time, Suzuha was brooding alone while looking at the cherry blossom tree. Then Kyugaha meets him and tries to instigate him to despair. Kyugaha said the previous girl had forgotten Suzuha. Even Bishamon had not called his name in 1 year. Realizing that his own mistress had forgotten him made Suzuha desperate. In the end, Phantom pounced on him to death. Feeling that one of her regalia had died, Bishamon immediately woke up. As a result of this incident, Bishamon's health worsened, and Kazuma even saw a curse on Bishamon's neck. Knowing this, Kazuma gathered regalia to be examined individually to see if there was a phantom in their bodies. Kyugaha was assigned to check the bodies of all of them, but there was no phantom on their bodies. Suddenly, Bishamon came. Kazuma was surprised because there was no curse on Bishamon's body. This made other regalia feel that Kazuma did not trust them, so the regalia began to lose their trust in Kazuma. Hearing Suzuha had not been seen for several days, Yato headed to the cherry tree to investigate. It turned out that there was a phantom smell there, so Yato confirmed that Suzuha had been killed by someone. Then Kyugaha met him. Kyugaha admitted that he was the one who killed Suzuha and immediately launched his attack on Yato. But Yato could trounce him, even without using regalia. At that time, Kyugaha was convinced that the reason why Yato was so strong even though he didn't have a shrine, it was because Yato had a strong bond with the humans from the near shore or his relationship with Hiyori. A Bishamon regalia named Eha was possessed by a phantom, and it happened because she was jealous of other regalia. Actually, she just wants to be noticed and useful for Bishamon. Kyugaha tried to use her and told her to do something later. On the other hand, Yukini wanted to see Suzuha, but Yato forbade him and warned him not to approach the cherry tree. But Yukini still headed there while hoping to meet Suzuha again. But he saw Kazuma giving a bouquet of flowers, and of course, it surprised Yukini. Yukini rushed after Kazuma and accidentally brought him into the Bishamon residence. Yukini screamed for Suzuha, but Kazuma calmed him down and told him that Suzuha was killed by Phantom. Kazuma told Yukini to get out of there immediately. Unfortunately, they were too late because Bishamon was behind them. Bishamon immediately pointed her gun at Yukini. Yukini explained that he was Suzuha's friend, and at the same time, Yukini's anger peaked. He blamed Bishamon for Suzuha's death. Suzuha had been lonely for years because Bishamon never called him. Yukini called Bishamon unworthy of being a god for not being able to protect Regalia and called the place hell. It affected the other Regalia to put Bishamon in pain. And then Bishamon asked why Kazuma had helped Yato in the purification ceremony. Kazuma said that Yato was not her enemy but her savior. Unfortunately, Bishamon did not accept that and shot them.
あの方は仇ではなく、あなたの恩人です。
ヤトは敵だ。
主に
一戦を。
Bishamon was very upset and immediately relieved Kazuma of his duties and expelled him. Meanwhile, Kugaha was very happy because his plan had succeeded in getting Kazuma out of there. Kazuma, who had been expelled temporarily, lived with Kafuku, and Yukini was saddened by the death of his best friend. While Yato and Hiyori were in the garden, suddenly Eiha came and intended to kill Yato. Unfortunately, Yato is powerful. He can make Eiha cornered until she runs away.
俺が一人のところを狙ったのか。丸腰の今なら勝てると舐められたもんだな。
Yato tried to chase her, but suddenly Phantom appeared there. It turns out that Kugaha asked Eiha to distract Yato, and at the same time, Kugaha caught Hiyori. Although Kazuma came to the place and immobilized them with a binding technique, unfortunately, it didn't work on Kugaha. In the end, they were both kidnapped by Kugaha. Kugaha leads them into a room sealed with a curse. Then Kazuma explained that if Hiyori's soul did not return to her body immediately, then Hiyori would die. Hiyori asked Kazuma about the beginning of the feud between Yato and Bishamon. Kazuma explained that Bishamon used to be very kind. She took care of many regalia until it became a village. But one day, Bishamon was contaminated by a curse, and the purification ceremony could not save her. As a result, the regalia blamed and accused each other and even killed each other. Seeing this, Kazuma could not do anything, so he decided to visit the god of disaster, Yato, famous for granting taboo requests. Kazuma begged the god Yato to kill them all to save Bishamon. After seeing Kazuma's determination, Yato accepted the request.
我が主、毘沙門天が神器、魔の一族を殺してください。あの方が助かるなら、私はこの名、主に返します。案内しろ。貸しにしといてやる。
They rushed there, and the regalia had become phantom. Using Nora, Yato immediately cut down the phantom without mercy so that Bishamon's regalia died one by one. Knowing this, Bishamon suffered and begged Yato to stop. Unfortunately, Yato didn't care at all and kept killing them all. In the end, only Kazuma and Bishamon remained. The incident made Bishamon desperate, but she harbored hatred for Yato, which motivated her to rise again. After that, Kazuma realized that the mastermind of all this was Kugaha. He intended to change leadership because when a god dies, and his name is still worshipped by humans, the god will be reborn. If the plan succeeds, Kugaha can control the god Bishamon according to his wishes. That's why Kugaha kidnapped Hiyori to provoke Yato's anger, so Yato would fight against Bishamon. On the other hand, knowing that Hiyori had been kidnapped, Yato and Yukini intended to attack Bishamon's headquarters and asked Tenjin to take them to Takamagahara. They immediately destroy the gate. Simultaneously, Bishamon is also there. Yato asked Yukini to strengthen his willpower so that they could save Hiyori, so his katana became stronger and sharper and managed to injure Bishamon's regalia. After that, one of Bishamon's regalia managed to drop his katana, then they made a barrier and locked up Yato's body. At the same time, Bishamon mobilized with all her strength to kill Yato. Suddenly, Yukini protected Yato, causing his body to split into two. Yato was in pain but realized Yukini's name seal was still not gone. Yato called Yukini's name again, and suddenly Yukini transformed into two katanas. It looks like Yukini has evolved into an imperial regalia. Yukini's strength is getting stronger. Now, he can withstand attacks from Bishamon until she is cornered. At the same time, Kugaha met Eiha because Eiha's body had been possessed by the phantom. Bishamon was hit by a curse that seriously injured her. Also, the curse affected the regalia used by Bishamon, making them tormented and begging to be released. Meanwhile, Kyugaha brought the masked phantom to slaughter all of Bishamon's weak regalia. As a result, Bishamon's body received a powerful curse. Even so, she remained stubborn to kill Yato. On the other hand, Ayer released Kazuma from prison. She regretted her actions and asked Kazuma to save Bishamon. Knowing that Bishamon had been contaminated by the curse, Kazuma and Hiyori immediately headed to their place. Bishamon lost a lot of regalia, and the curse almost took her body, but she vented her anger on Yato. Seeing that Yato had no choice but to kill her, fortunately, Hiyori managed to stop Yato. Kazuma immediately explained everything so that they stopped fighting. Unfortunately, Bishamon was out of control. As Bishamon launched her attack on Yato, Kazuma suddenly blocked her attack with his own body. Kazuma hugged Bishamon and said that he was a traitor who begged Yato to slaughter the Regalia Bishamon clan. Kazuma knew he had done wrong but wanted to stay by Bishamon's side. With his consciousness almost gone, Kazuma apologized for making Bishamon suffer again. Hearing that, Bishamon immediately cried while hugging Kazuma. Then Kyugaha met them. Seeing Bishamon down, Kyugaha said everything that had happened was Bishamon's fault because she gave regalia a name for free. The useless regalia only became a source of Bishamon's pain, so the events experienced by Bishamon before were repeated. Seeing her desperate, Kyugaha immediately incited her to end her own life. Seeing Kyugaha wanting to kill his own master made Yato disgusted with him and would punish him on the spot. Kyugaha knew that he could not win against Yato, so he called Phantom to fight Yato. Unfortunately, Yato is stronger than the Phantom and can defeat him with one attack. Even though Kyugaha had betrayed her, Bishamon loved him because she thought that what Kyugaha had done was to maintain Bishamon's good name, even though it was the wrong way. Then, as punishment, Bishamon took off Kyugaha's name and threw it away. After that, Bishamon finished off the masked phantom who was there. Even though her body was filled with curses, Bishamon was very strong. She took all the pain and ended Regalia's suffering with her own hands. After that incident, Aha made up with them, and even the other Regalia reunited to protect their employer. Then Bishamon asked Kazuma to be her aide so that he could guide and lead them. In the end, Bishamon's misunderstanding and grudge against Yato had ended. Yato, Yukini, and Hiyori returned to the world and were greeted by Kafuku and Tenjin at the shrine. Yato immediately showed off Yukini, who became the imperial regalia to everyone. Knowing this, Kafuku and others were happy and proud of Yukini. A few days later, the gods held a sudden meeting, but the gods who did not have temples were not invited to the meeting. Then, they discussed the big mess made by Bishamon. It turned out that when Bishamon was contaminated with the curse in her fight with the god Yato, heaven and earth were unbalanced. They also said that Bishamon had made a big mistake in releasing Kyugaha when they could have gotten important information about the masked phantom from Kyugaha, so they decided to conduct a search to catch him. On the other hand, the Abyssal god had heard the news about Yukini evolving into an imperial regalia, so they met Yato with a suitcase of money to buy Yukini. Seeing how much money attracted Yato, Abyssal told him to make his own shrine out of the money. Although Yato refused to sell Yukini, the massive amount of money could fulfill his dream of having a shrine. Yukini begins to realize his role as an aide whose duty is to guide his employer to the right path. That's why he convinced Yato to reject Abyssal's offer. Although Yato rejected the offer, he was sad because he could not realize his dream of owning a shrine. Seeing this, Hiyori took the initiative to make a small shrine and handed it over to Yato. It immediately made Yato cry. Even though it was only a small shrine, at least his dream was starting to come true. Kafuku explained that making a shrine is a great honor for the gods because it shows the respect and gratitude of humans directed at the gods. Then, it was revealed that Abyssal was experimenting to make Phantom his subordinate by giving him a name through a one-eyed mask. Unfortunately, every time Abisu performed the ritual, his body was cursed. After having the shrine, Yato was so happy that he now had land in the place of the gods, Takamagahara. They can visit Takamagahara anytime with the shrine and attend the gods' meetings. Yato and Yukini immediately headed there and greeted their neighbors. Yukini visited Bishamon's residence to greet them and asked Kazuma to teach him how to use spells to become stronger. On the other hand, Kafuku explained that gods are born from human requests. If the god is famous, he will reincarnate every time he dies. But gods like Yato, who are not famous, if no more people beg him or forget him, then that's the end of his life. One day, Yato suddenly got a call from Nora. When Yato met her, Yato said he wanted to break off his relationship with Nora because Yato already had Yukini and Hiyori. Hearing this made Nora angry and called the Phantom to attack Yato. Yato, who does not use regalia, will certainly not be able to defeat Phantom. In the end, Yato was helpless and defeated. After that incident, Yato never returned to Kafuku's house, and even Yukini and Hiyori couldn't find him. It turns out that Yato is back to doing his job as the god of disaster. For a fee of only 5 yen, Yato is willing to grant people's requests to kill humans.
どうか娘の仇を。
これでいい。そんな価値ねえよ。助けて！助け！
Nora seems to have managed to influence Yato even though Yato remembers Hiyori and wants to leave immediately. Then, someone called Father by Nora gave Yato the last task to go to hell and save a witch. If successful, then Yato can be free to do anything. They immediately headed to where the gate of hell was. Nora explained that the place was filled with terrible phantoms and even a hell queen named Izanami. Izanami is immortal. If they are caught in her trap, they will be trapped forever in hell. To return to Yukini and Hiyori's place, Yato has no choice but to complete his last task. On the other hand, the gods held another meeting, and they conveyed the results of their investigation about a witch. It turns out that the witch who has controlled Phantom is Abisu, so the gods decided to take over the residence and interrogate his regalia. Meanwhile, the other gods close to Abisu were temporarily detained there. When Yato entered hell, he suddenly met Abisu there. It turns out that Yato's last task is to save the witch Abisu. Yato immediately told Abisu to escape but still explored the place because he wanted to meet Izanami and seize the brush that could control the phantom. Suddenly, they were transported to another place and met Izanami. She uses the form of someone familiar to them, so Yato sees Izanami using Hiyori's form and tries to seduce Yato. Luckily, Nora quickly protects Yato and asks him not to fight with Izanami because her power is strong. Abisu immediately explained the purpose of his arrival. Izanami would give the brush as long as one of them had to stay in hell to accompany her. Abisu and Yato finally fought each other, even though he was not a god of war, but Abisu's fighting ability was so strong that he could corner Yato.
それではヤトさんが私のお友達に。
It turns out that they pretended to fight to trick Izanami. After getting the brush, they immediately ran away from there. Of course, Izanami was very upset and wouldn't let them go. On the other hand, because Hiyori hasn't seen Yato for a long time, it makes Hiyori forget Yato. Hiyori realized she had forgotten someone important but couldn't remember his name. That's why she cried while going on vacation with her friends. Then, a man named Fujisaki saw Hiyori's face, instantly fascinating him. Suddenly, he held Hiyori's hand and immediately kissed her. Because Fujisaki kissed her, making Hiyori upset with herself for letting the bastard boy take her first kiss. Then, when Hiyori returned home from school, she met Yukini. Her meeting with Yukini made Hiyori remember Yato. They stop by Kafuku's place and ask about the whereabouts of Yato, who has been missing for a month. At the same time, Kafuku also hasn't returned from the meeting of the gods. Yato and Abisu, who were trying to get out of hell, were chased by Izanami. Abisu said that many of his predecessors were killed to get the brush, but he managed to get it this time. Abisu's goal of getting the locution brush was for the benefit of mankind. If he could control the phantom, he could stop the disaster caused by the phantom so that the world would be better. Yato was impressed by Abisu's dream and thought Abisu's wish was very noble. Therefore, Yato asked him to immediately escape from there while he would buy time by fighting Izanami alone. On the other hand, the other regalia felt something was strange because the gods had not returned. One of the Tenjin regalia used her power to talk to all the trees. That way, she learned that the 6 gods of luck were being held while Abisu entered hell, followed by Yato and Nora. They immediately divided the group, and Kazuma saved the gods, including Bishamon. Meanwhile, Hiyori and Yukini headed to the gates of hell to meet Yato. Abisu found a way out. Unfortunately, the place had been sealed by Izanami, thus making Abisu desperate and intending to stay there so that Yato could be free.
もう一度会いたいやつはいねえのか。何でもいい。心残りはねえのかよ。
オリーブ県の定食が食べたいか。
上等だ。その願い、この宿神が聞き届けた。
But Yato scolded him not to give up and told him to use the locution brush to create a phantom gate. That way, Abisu entered the phantom whirlwind while Yato's legs were pulled by Izanami.
マジで穴開けやがった。熱い。
Bishamon and Kazuma rushed to hell to meet Abisu. At the same time, the phantom gate opened there. Seeing that Yukini and Hiyori rushed there, but they met Kyugaha instead. Yukini launched an attack with a barrier technique. Unfortunately, his attack was caught by Kyugaha. They decided to run away from him while looking for an opening to counterattack. With that, Yukini launched a stronger barrier technique that defeated Kyugaha. They rushed to the Phantom Gate and met with Bishamon and the others. Abisu managed to get out of hell. Unfortunately, Yato was still in hell because Izanami caught him. Abisu explained that Yato came to save him. Therefore, Abisu begged Bishamon to save Yato immediately. However, the Phantom Gate had previously closed, so there was no way to enter hell. Fortunately, Kafuku met them and could make the Phantom Gate with her ability. Yukini wanted to go with them into hell to save Yato, but they couldn't take him. In the end, only Bishamon and her members entered hell. Bishamon managed to find Yato and immediately launched her attack on Izanami. Unfortunately, their attacks did not work because hell was Izanami's territory. Bishamon ordered her regalia to focus on saving Yato and prepare to escape from there. On the other hand, the Phantom Gate is closing quickly. If it's like this, they won't be able to escape hell. Then Abisu tells them there is a way to bring Yato back, but this requires a human from the near shore, Hiyori. Abisu advises them to perform a spirit summoning ritual by calling his name through a phantom gate. However, only a strong bond can do this. That person is Hiyori. Bishamon was helpless against Izanami and was about to be eaten by the phantom, while Yato was entangled by Izanami's hair and could not do anything. Suddenly, Bishamon heard Hiyori calling her name, making Bishamon immediately come out of hell. The spirit summoning ritual was successfully carried out by Hiyori. When Hiyori called Yato, he could not respond to her call. His real name is not Yato because that's why Hiyori can't call him. No one knows who Yato's real name is, even Bishamon and Kafuku don't know it. Then, the heavenly army with the executioners appeared to execute the god Abisu. Bishamon tried to prevent them and asked them to listen to Abisu's defense first. Unfortunately, they refused to do so. They immediately shot thousands of arrows to kill Abisu. Abisu managed to deflect them using Phantom. At the same time, Hiyori tried to call Yato. Suddenly, Hiyori remembered the shrine she made. An inscription of Yato's name made Hiyori realize Yato's real name was Yaboku. Unexpectedly, it managed to free Yato from hell. They were pleased to be reunited with Yato. Unfortunately, the battle is not over yet. The heavenly army has had enough and uses one of the strongest regalia, the dragon-shaped lightning sword. Bishamon asked them to run away from there while she fought the dragon. Bishamon pointed out Kazuma's prowess as an imperial regalia. Kazuma could strengthen the power of his friends and maximize their attack range. That way, their attacks could hit opponents from a long distance, and in the end, they managed to defeat the dragon. The battle was still not over, as the heavenly army planned to use the ancient pacification ring technique to punish Abisu. Once hit by the attack, they will not be able to survive. Even so, Yato does not want Abisu to die. He shows Yukini's prowess as an imperial regalia that can slash anything. Everyone is impressed with Yukini's abilities, but the pacification ring appears under Abisu, so he can no longer be saved. After Abisu was hit by the attack, the heavenly army left from there. Meanwhile, Yato immediately ran to hug the dying Abisu. He was very grateful to meet Yato. Yato also felt the same way because Abisu's strong determination made Yato find a new purpose. Even if Abisu dies, he will be reborn as long as the humans still remember him. Abisu was reborn as a child and didn't remember his previous life. A few days later, Yato took Abisu to his favorite eating place to fulfill Abisu's last wish. Abisu was pleased while eating a hamburger steak because it was his favorite food. After that, Abisu met the other 6 gods of fortune. Abisu's regalia told him the truth that had happened. Abisu entered hell to get the locution brush from Izanami. He wanted to control the phantom in hopes of reducing disasters and making the phantom useful to humans. Unfortunately, the locution brush disappeared after that battle and could not be found. The 6 gods of fortune were shocked by that fact and were amazed at how noble Abisu was, who loved the human world so much and was willing to do anything for the benefit of mankind. On the other hand, Yato invited Yukini to talk and told him that he and Nora had recently killed humans just to fulfill a wish. Yato no longer wants to be a god like that. He wants to be a god who makes others happy, like Abisu. Suddenly, Nora came to them, and Yato realized that Abisu was only used as a sacrifice to replace the figure called Father by Nora. With Abisu's death managed to deceive the heavens so that they stopped the investigation of witches. Even though the real witch is still alive, Yato was fed up with Nora. Therefore, he broke off his relationship with Nora by force.
今までありがとうヒーロー
嘘でしょ
引きお前を
After that, Yato said he wanted to become a god of luck and make others happy, but he could only kill. That's why Yato asked Yukini to guide him. Yukini, as his aide, is determined to help Yato realize his dream. Then, the boy named Fujisaki, who had kissed Hiyori before, was carrying a locution brush. It turns out that Fujisaki is the incarnation of the father figure of Nora and Yato. He is the mastermind of all this chaos. However this story ends, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.